Hello, my name is Madison, and I made my literature lesson plan for a second grade classroom. The three books I chose are written as poems, but all play different roles to explain and teach my students that everyone comes from a different background. So, the three books that I chose are My Mom is a Foreigner, but Not to Me, Johnny Appleseed, and then Cat in the Hat. The standards in the content area is geography, which is geography 2.8, 2.9, and 2.10. And then you have your reading and language 2.4. Your objectives for today is to be able to recall what stories we read and what happened in each story. You're going to be able to relate and then make connections between the stories. So the first story that I chose is My Mom is a Foreigner, but Not to Me. So your genre is fiction and your international, but also poetry, which is by Julianne Moore and Milo So. So this book is about when your mom is from another country, your life might be a little different from your friends. Maybe your mom speaks with an accent, fills your lunch with funny foods, or wears strange clothes. Perhaps she doesn't look like you, or she sings funny songs. But as all kids with foreign moms know, what makes their moms different is also what makes them the best. So the reasoning behind this book is that not everyone comes from the same family or the same background. So in this book, I have a little girl that her mom is a foreigner, and as the story goes on, it explains to us how her mom is different. So for example, it says, "She makes me do stuff foreign ways. She says that it's polite. I have to tell her all the time that she's not always right. I don't have to take my shoes off. I won't bring soup to school. Other kids don't kiss me 3 times, Mom. I mean it. It's not cool. Some people say we look alike. Others wonder, what's her name? I get so upset when they say, why don't you look the same? She talks a little funny. She has an accent. It is French. She had to learn a new language here because her words weren't making sense. She has some funny sayings that are hard to understand unless you are from Scotland, Italy, or Japan." And then it goes on to explain that there's different generations that had led up to her mom acting the way she does. And around the end of the book, it says, "I call her mom in public, but that's not her real name. It's Muddy, Mama, Mummy, my man. Just mom is not the same. Sometimes it's hard work teaching my mom stuff, but she's learning more each day. She'll be done when I'm grown up. There are some things I don't tell her because she already knows, like how she could take care of me from my head to my toes." So I specifically read those parts of the book so you know that not everyone comes from the same background and that your mom might raise you to be different than what your friend's mom would raise their kids. So in Bloom's taxonomy, there's 6 different levels. You have remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So for my 5 questions for this book, I would ask, who in this story is foreign? In your own words, what does it mean to be foreign? When you're applying it, I want you to draw where you came from. So if you're from Ohio, you can draw anything. You're from like Cincinnati, it could be the Cincinnati Reds. It could be the Cincinnati Bengals, anything. When you're analyzing, I want you to be able to describe your drawing. So why you drew what you did, where you come from, what is different from your background than your friend's background. And then finally, to evaluate you to make sure, that we're on the right track, I'm going to ask, why is her mom foreign to everyone else but not her? So for my activity, I would do a show and tell, and the students would bring in 1 or 2 things to describe their family background and how it could be different for them than what others around you. So for my example is I have this towel and it has the U on it. So for me, I go to Urbana University and I am a double major in early childhood education and intervention specialist. What makes me different from most people is I'm the first person in my whole entire family to go to college. I am in the women's soccer team, and I will be the first person to get a degree and have a college education. So that's for my first book. My second book that I chose is Johnny Appleseed. So the genre is informational, but it's also poetry. Your author and your illustrator is Reeve Lindbergh and Kathy Jacobson. So the reason why I chose Johnny Appleseed is because, along with My Mom is Foreign, but Not to Me, it involves different backgrounds of where Johnny Appleseed travels. So he starts in Massachusetts, and then he goes to New York and Connecticut, and he goes to Pennsylvania and Ohio, and then he finally ends up in Indiana. But the whole book is telling you about how Johnny Appleseed went to all these different states to create apple trees, which then led to the rest of America. So in this book, it talks about who Johnny Appleseed is. So it says on the first page, in the early days of the American frontier, when most of his nation was still wild, unsettled land, there lived a man of great courage and gentleness who traveled through the wilderness planting apple trees. His name was John Chapman, though he came to be known to generations of Americans as Johnny Appleseed. This is one story about his gift to our country. So as the book goes on, there's different pictures, and it goes to show you where he's traveling and who he's talking to. In one page it says, he said he'd gladly stay to sup, but could not linger here. He had to go plant apple trees across the great frontier. He said it was a wide, wild land, a lonesome land and long. He said his apples, sharp and sweet, would make the country strong. The family listened while he spoke, of forests green and grand, of prairies vast with waving grass, of rivers ribbed in sand. He spoke of families like their own, all moving bravely west, with guns and tots and cooking pots to claim the wilderness. And then it shows about how he travels through the wilderness and starts beginning to plant apple trees. A couple pages later, it says, the Goodwin family wished him well and watched him leave alone. He carried neither gun nor knife, no weapon did he own. For though he walked alone and lorn through dangerous land and wild, he said he'd harm no creature born, each one was God's own child. So in this story, this is going to relate to how Johnny Appleseed traveled through the states by himself to make a difference in the world without having to harm anyone that could possibly get in his way. So back to the questions that I would be asking is, who is the main character? Why is he traveling to different states? What type of tree is he planting? If you were Johnny, what would you plant? And then what is something you can make from apples? So in the book, it talks about how from apples you can make apple pie. So that would be one of the answers. So, and then as my activity in the class is we would have a plant and we would grow it and watch it grow through the time being that we were in school and have a little example of how Johnny Appleseed started trees. So that is why I chose the book Johnny Appleseed. So for my final book that I chose, it was for a little fun closure of what this little literature lesson plan was about. And I did The Cat in the Hat by Dr. Seuss. So of course your author and illustrator is Dr. Seuss. And it would be a fun way to end this lesson because it also deals with different views of how doing something could affect you in a long-term or short-term situation. So all Dr. Seuss's books are rhyming. So, for example, it starts out with, the sun did not shine, it was too wet to play, so we sat in the house all that cold, cold, wet day. I sat there with Sally, we sat there we two, and I said how I wish we had something to do. Too wet to go out and too cold to play ball. So we sat in the house, we did nothing at all. So all we could do was sit, 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 and we did not like it, not one little bit. So it goes on and it's showing you like examples. In this picture is when the cat arrives, and it's talking about how the fish is saying, no cat, you have to leave, this is not okay. And then it goes on and goes on to where the cat is making a complete mess in the house. So I will pick up the hook, you will see something new. Two things, and I call them thing one and thing two. The things will not bite you, they want to have fun. Then out of the box came thing two and thing one. and they ran to us fast. They said, "How do you do? Would you like to shake hands with thing 1 and thing 2?" So then it shows thing 1 and thing 2 meeting Sally and the little boy. So this goes on, and it's just a little fun rhyming situation of where not everyone would deal with a cat coming into the house that can talk the same situations as if it was a human being or something along those lines. So the 5 questions that I would ask is, how many things are there? Why did the fish say the Cat in the Hat should leave the house? What is the first game that the Cat in the Hat played with the fish? Would you make the Cat in the Hat leave? Why or why not? And then, was it a good idea that Sally and the little boy let him stay? So then, to finish off my little literature lesson plan, I would have the students create the hat that Cat in the Hat would wear. So it would be something like this, and they would have construction paper, and you have cat, and then they got to rhyme whatever words they wanted as the hat goes up. So I have cat, hat, mat, and pat. So it's just a little fun activity to put the construction paper together and get to color and use their rhyming skills and go from there. And of course my rubric, my understanding is to make sure that they understand that people come from different backgrounds and that not everyone is the same. So that would be the whole point of this lesson plan. And I would make it fun instead of just reading a book, doing a worksheet, doing a test. It would be more hands-on. I know students like to do visual, auditory, kinesthetic. You can't have them just sitting down on the desk just doing whatever to see if they understand. So that is why I chose the books. My Mom is a Foreigner, but Not to Me, Johnny Appleseed, and The Cat in the Hat.